Well, hello, everyone. I didn't properly say hello to everybody. So, like I said, we're at Shalia. Since this wasn't on, I wasn't recording when I introduced it. We're at Shalia and Daniel's apartment today because Debbie, her habilitation coach, which is my Robert's sister, she went to California for the week in San Diego, Leah, and she came back with COVID.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, California's kind of a hotbed for it right now.
Mhm.
Everyone just stay out of Southern California.
I came back with
Mhm.
COVID. Debbie came back with COVID. Fortunately, she felt herself getting sick, and so she called me and we dropped the test off. And before she came over with the kids and got them all going, Shalia is so hard when she gets sick like that because, nonverbal, it's hard to know how sick she really is. And it's just really tough. So I appreciate her not getting sick. We can avoid it.
Yeah.
All
So I
right.
just wanted to say something based on what Leah said that I've been thinking about a lot. It's interesting that you said almost like coaching the teachers because I'm a physical therapist. I find especially the beginning of the year, the teachers all complain to me because they can't about each other really, and that they're scared about the boss and like I don't know because we're like not in the same category as them. They know that, right? So they know that we come in and do our thing and kind of go. And I'm only there 2 days a week, so I find. But like sometimes I have to hold myself back because sometimes I want to like say to my boss, like, okay, like you're overworking this one because she says yes, and like you're not because this one complains, but like it's not my place and I can't do it. But sometimes I feel like I wish we could be that like collaboration coach and like it would be okay for us to come to our supervisors and say, everyone's coming to me. And I tried it last year and my boss was like, tell them to come to me if they have a problem. Like she wasn't receptive. She's like, you can't be their liaison. But I was just seeing it from like a global point of view, right? And it's like we talk a lot about burnout. We talk about like the resilient learner with my students. And as I've been teaching the students this language, I start introduced it to my special ed high school students and they love it last week. I see like some of the teachers are like in those states as well, So I'll like be like, you know what? Why don't you come in my group and go for a walk with me? Like I'm trying to get them into the sympathetic or whatever to figure out when they're all like withdrawn or hyper. And it's just sometimes I hear what you're saying about being that like coach, but sometimes we are it. But then what do you do with it? Because you know, I don't know, it's kind of like, is it our place? But sometimes you see it from all the perspectives. You see, like, hey, that teacher's class is way too crowded, or the kids are not appropriate, they're not well matched. So I'm actually going to have that conversation with my supervisor because she has me even doing observations this year. And I want to really say to her, like, you need to tell me if you're open to the feedback. Otherwise, like, you know what I'm saying? That I'm not complaining. I just kind of, we as therapists, sometimes I said, could see it more globally. And I'm seeing this in my elementary and my high school this year. And it's like, it's a funny thing that you said that because I feel like, we kind of have a unique point of view and we're not competing with them. We're not competing over that teacher got more classes, that teacher got less classes. It's all about the periods and how many preps they got. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking of all the things we talk about in school moves about burnout. And I'm like, all these things that we're talking about our students to be resilient, but like, what are we doing for our teachers to be resilient? Anyway, that's just my
But
little.
Jess, I think what you're saying though, it's just in the last like month, I've been really thinking about the just one thing that Debbie always have us, after we get all this information, then it's like this just one thing, which I actually think is a really effective tool. And so I do like kind of what you're saying, Jess, is I do really look at that with teachers. So like when someone does come to me with that kind of global like too much, because like globally I'm totally in too much right now, honestly. Like even before I got on, I was in a meeting and trying to catch students and like in 3 different schools and all of them have different systems and I'm just like, and when you really can hear someone say all of that and think, well, the just one thing, and maybe you can help them advocate for themselves when you help them identify that just one thing. Like, well, what do you think would make a difference? You know what I mean? Like, we do support teachers and students. And what do you need right now? Would you need more structure in your routine or longer? Do you know what I mean? Like I have been really thinking of that since this school where I am in particular is year round, so they start in July. And it does end up feeding into that element of self-advocacy. And your director gave you that direct feedback. I want them to come to me, but maybe they're so flooded they don't know what to ask. So that is something you can reflect back to them. And Deb, I love that idea of what's the just one thing, what's the one thing you could ask for? And then you can turn that into self-advocacy. Sorry, me to myself. That was just my 2 cents on how to support that.
That's okay. My son just walked through too. He just got in from school, so he just walked by too.
No, I think that's very, very valid. You're right. Or like to ask them specifically. The director, to be fair, wrote an email last week and she said, I know there's a lot of talk. I ask that you don't talk about me, you talk to me. Right. And that was a good line. Like, ooh, that's a good line. But then when people did come to her, she wasn't receptive. So sometimes she does ask me for feedback. So that's the thing. You can push them to do it. And then
Marie and I are laughing with that one. Yeah.
yeah.
We've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like one of the things I'm learning as I'm doing this course material is that, and because I guess we're the people that a lot of times the therapists, the principals, I feel like all the different people tell me what's going on. Not God forbid about each other in a bad way, just kind of like I hear it from all the different sides. And I'm always like, can I make world peace? Like maybe we can be the peacekeepers, the therapists. My friends who are other therapists, like, don't get involved. I'm like, I know, I just feel so bad because it could help the kids. And I see good teachers burning out all the time. And it's like, no, it'd be so simple fix. Some of it's really not even about money. It's really about being overwhelmed or not feeling appreciated. And like I see it happening, right? There's this one teacher. I'm like, by the end of the year, she's gone. I could see it already. Because she's their 3rd year. She's anything they ask her to do, she does. So they gave her like literally 18 different periods during the week that she has to prepare for. I'm not even joking. It's special ed, so we have every class is only 3 to 4 kids, but that's a lot of preparation, and they gave her one prep time and it's overwhelming. And then there's other people that complain and they just have to go on job sites or they just have to do life skills, which is kind of like laundry or cooking or I mean, you don't have to prepare for those classes like you do the other ones. And she comes to me and I'm really pushing her to advocate for herself. And like you said, like tell her it's too much because I hate to say it, but I do notice that with a lot of things, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. The teachers that complain magically have lighter schedules, which is bad because that's not what we want either.
They get lighter schedule. It's a pet peeve of mine. They get
Yeah.
lighter schedule and they get all the best behaved kids.
Yes.
The principal just doesn't want to hear from them. And so the ones who get really good at what we're talking about, they're the ones, Marie can probably talk to this and maybe Kathy too, about, they get the stacked classes because they know they'll get less complaints if they put them in Marie's class because she's good with those kids than if they put them in somebody else's, right, Marie?
I actually asked my principal point blank one year, I said, how is anyone else going to get good at this?
Yeah.
And what was the response?
Nothing. Nothing. Not even a change. Like, people can say nothing, but then down the road, something shifts. No, it was nothing and nothing shifted. Interestingly, I've had the same in the role I'm in now. I get the same, and I guess I did even when I was in the classroom. People would come to me and share. I don't know why. But I do hear the same stories about frustration and burnout and, good people who say, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And your heart bleeds for them. And a principal and I actually in the district, and I actually put a plan together, a proposal for a coaching trial, like a pilot. They denied that there was even that problem in the district. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Chris, what
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And to speak to like, sometimes, you can do what would help the most or what do you think would help? But sometimes I don't think they know.
Yeah. Chris, are you seeing in your schools, because you're doing Hope and you're doing all of these kind of global district-wide things, how are you seeing your teachers' response to it and their burnout and frustration levels? Because you're also itinerant. You teach a lot of the teachers, right? So you hear within the district, oh, that's going on. What are you seeing?
Yes, I think our district, we have a very robust climate group. And actually, I just got home because we had our climate meeting today after school, and to help identify those challenges within each building's culture, because culture is so heavy. And when you have a culture that is almost toxic, like Catherine, you're describing, and yet there's not that awareness of it or denial that that problem exists, that's really tough, because that's what everyone is feeling, right? The heaviness of the culture, the dynamics being such that it doesn't allow for safety to share opinions or to even, give insight, because there's not that person who could listen and help bring everyone together to see what can be done to rectify it. Our district 2 years ago started a staff wellness, and we had a Wednesday wellness newsletter that went out twice a month, and really trying to get our staff to be aware of the 8 dimensions of health from SAMHSA, and to do something about, just taking that time to be self-reflective, to see what they can do to, and I love, Leah, self-advocate. That's what it's all about, right? We have to empower staff to be their own best advocates for what their needs are, because if our teachers don't show up at 100%, then that's not going to be a good outcome for the students either. So really lifting that for staff has been a big focus. Last year and this year, we have an EAP program that we're rolling out. Actually tomorrow, it's a waiver day. And so this EAP program is amazing, and it has a lot of resources and webinars and live webinars, recorded webinars. And so hopefully our staff will take advantage of scrolling through and seeing how those programs and offerings can best meet their needs.
I love that, Chris, because really, it's such a little sense of having support that really can change. Then, just like thinking about our nervous system states, from feeling overwhelmed, activated or in dorsal. And I have a little example of it that I'm not quite all the way through, but I'm at this school, and I think a lot of us are dealing with kids who are really struggling with literacy rates, especially after COVID, and especially like in Title I schools where I'm working. And I contacted Handwriting Without Tears, and for the last, I don't know, I want to say like 5 years, I trained with them a zillion years ago. And I've been really kind of stumped by feeling like they've become this very big corporation and everything costs money. And it really made me feel like they were a resource that wasn't going to be available to me anymore, because I never get that kind of budget. It only comes out of if I buy it on my own. So I really started to feel like that's not available to me, because I don't work for schools that can afford that. That's only the very affluent communities where there's big fundraising. And it was really a mindset I had. And then I'm evaluating so many kids who don't know their ABCs. And I just thought, this is honestly the best program I know for what I want to do. And I wrote them emails that didn't get replied. And then I found a phone number and I called someone. And this one person replied to me. She's up in Sacramento. She totally understood what I was trying to do. And she just sent me some tips. And it was like one of those things where her listening to me and validating how hard this is, and just the little bits of support she shared totally lifted me. You know, it was like that, not even just one foot in ventral. I just felt like my whole upper body was in ventral. And then I had then the energy to take that to our program specialist. And it's just like, you know, when you think of like this person's receptiveness totally energized me in a super positive way that then I passed on to the program specialist. Then I was like super brave and went to our new director, and everybody else was like, and she approved me doing a training for the whole staff. And I just think like, thank you.
Awesome.
But also this woman in Sacramento, do you know what I mean? Her little bit of, I hear you, this is for real, here's the support, just created like this positive wave of possibility.
Yeah.
And I think when we see how powerful just that kind of support, and I think that like in some ways we all can, do you know, like that idea of Chris Willard of being the ambassador? I think just recognizing how mighty hearing people and validating them and giving them a little bit of support can create such a big movement.
That's true. Some teachers are in like dorsal vagal. I saw it today. They're just like not, and then they're checked out to be able to even teach because they're so overwhelmed. They're that shutdown piece. And the sympathetic teachers are the ones who are getting all the attention because they're in and out of the principal's office and they're making a scene and they're. I saw one teacher just kept leaving her kids and they kept sitting by themselves. And I'm like, well, she's advocating now, but they're sitting here and not learning. And so I don't know who's learning what, but it's true. And it's not so different in the classroom, right? The kids in sympathetic are getting the most attention because they are the ones causing behaviors. If you don't deal with it, they're going to hurt themselves or they're disruptive. It's those, I always point out to teachers, those kids in dorsal vagal, I worry about those the most. And I feel like that's the same with staff. I'm seeing that. I'm seeing it more and more. Now, you know, once you learn something, you like see it everywhere. I'm like really seeing that.
Dana calls it looking at life through the polyvagal lens. She says, once you've looked through that lens, you can't unsee it or you can't see it any other way. And I find that to be true too. And I think that's interesting, your observation. I hadn't ever thought of it that way, that our teachers in dorsal are the ones who aren't getting the support because they're not loud. They're not failing loudly, you know, so I think that's a really interesting observation. Yeah.
Chris, a question for you, because you mentioned the CAP program. We also have resources online. I know for a fact they're not being used. But that is one thing that is kind of thrown out there when we bring up support for teachers. And for very real reasons, I'm not saying the resources on there are not good, but given a teacher's load of everything else they need to be learning and mastering and paying attention to, what is happening that will encourage teachers to use that program? And is there still a component that you are doing that is part of the like human to human interface?
Well, tomorrow is our waiver day, as I shared. And so a rep from the EAP program we have 4 pre-K through 8 buildings and a high school. And she's going to visit each of those 5 campuses to talk with staff directly. And then we're going to do our best to keep driving traffic to that website. So they have a monthly newsletter, and we'll put the newsletter via Sway or a way that we could count clicks, because sadly, Catherine, that's what we heard also, that the EAP programs are there, but the percentage of usage is very low. And I don't know why that is. And hopefully, as we proceed and kind of keep an ear to what staff will be saying about it, we could tease it out a little bit better. I know last week, it was just a soft unveiling, and I ran into a staff person and she was saying how much she loves it as she's a young parent, and she took advantage of some of the parenting classes. And she said, I just love scrolling through that at night. And so, I don't know, I think that that's going to be, we have to be very intentional with our messaging so that staff see it as something that could really be useful for them during their downtime to, I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed that we don't even know what we need. So hopefully that we could create enough positive buzz for people to at least take a look at it and see what's available.
I think the key
But
is
I-
also like giving teachers time. Like you were saying, this mother did it after work. I feel like when people have, I think that's one of the biggest things, that teachers are not given prep periods or what the adequate prep period. So for some teachers, they work with other students who need more help if there's not enough special ed support and stuff. So because of it, at night when you finally get home, I know me, I don't want to think about physical therapy now. Do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like even though it could be the best course in the world, whenever there's a night course, it's very hard for me to focus if I work that day, right? So I think that's part of it. It's like, giving them, I don't know, set days, I don't know, getting them a sub a half a day a month or something, and letting them just spend the time that they actually have to do it. They have to be in the building doing it, I'm
That's
not
a
really
great
mad
idea,
that-
Jess.
Yeah, because that's the problem. It's everyone has great intentions. I would love to take all these courses. It's just a matter of time, and then you have your own home and your own children and food you have to cook for them and laundry, and then you have to get up and do it again the next day, So I think it's really just a matter of, I think that's the biggest reason people don't use resources. I think they need like set time that this is your time to do this, and no, you're not making personal calls and you're not helping students, you're just devoting to this. I don't know exactly how to make that happen, but I do notice that when the time is given, like an in-service day, I have one school, they'll say, these are all the things we have to take care of, but for this 2 hours, you have to pick from one of these courses and take it and give us a certificate that you did it, right? So that they did it, so there's some accountability, but there's a choice. Is it reading? Is it, so I don't know, just a thought.
Chris,
So-
what does EAP stand for?
Thank you. I was gonna ask that.
Employee Assistance Program.
What is the goal, to help? Can you, I'm gleaning that it's support for whatever they need. So like parenting or stress reduction kinds of or coping, like things like that. Is that what's
Yes. Yes, and so this month of September, the EAP's newsletter is focused on burnout, and there are quite a few opportunities for them to take classes or view a webinar or read an article on stress and what do you do when you start feeling overwhelmed, and different levels of that burnout. And then in October, it's on financial literacy for staff, and so there are very different components each month that will be focused on.
it does sound like a useful resource. Yeah.
And surprisingly, there's even counseling that's available through a master's or a PhD provider 24/7. There is legal consultation that's available one time during the year for anything from drawing up a will to other type of legal challenges you might be finding yourself in, other than if you're suing the school or malpractice. Then you have to find your own legal support. But caregiving for aging parents, just a wide variety. There is even one on how to help mothers and daughters get along. And I laughed at that because we have a lot of girls in our house, but I thought, like there was something for everyone.
Nice.
But that's a great idea, just build in time during the day so that staff really have a chance to see what's available and see how it could be worked into that day so that it's not one more thing after you do your 3 loads of wash and you get dinner and dishes done and, you know, all of our second shift worth of work, right?
Right. I was thinking about something Leah said in terms of or someone said, I don't know who it was, like asking what the person needs, like what is something that would lift some of the weight. And I think it is difficult to answer that question. And I know for me, like what's pressing down on me right now, that website probably wouldn't meet me at where I need, but I would definitely use it for other things. You know, something that happened in a staff meeting was the principal asked us to think just quietly, what are the 3 roadblocks to our feeling successful in the classroom? And I felt like that really was a turning point for our staff, and it made people feel heard. And she was able to say, isn't this fascinating? Look, in all the different grade levels, because it was just a grade level conversation, it was the same 3 things basically. And it was behavior, and it was parent support, because lots of times now parents are feeling they so don't know how to handle what's happening with their child's behavior, that I feel like they're looking for other reasons why their kid isn't behaving. It's not the kid's fault. It's something the teacher's done or the school has failed to do, or I don't know. And then I forgot what our third one was, but just having that conversation and feeling validated really, really meant the world. And that was a year and a half ago. And I feel like we're still trying to find our way to finding meaningful solutions to those things. But at least I feel like there's a chance we might, because we were allowed to name the problem. And at our school, we all agree, yes, it's real. It's a real problem. I don't know what administrators in the district office, what their view is, because I'm feeling like we're not getting support that I think our school needs. We are a massive school. It's TK through 8th grade, and we have like 1,000 kids. And some of the smaller schools have way more resources in terms of personnel and funding to take care of things. And so I don't know. I don't know what the end game is going to be, but yeah, I think just listening to what the problem is maybe sometimes can help us together think of a path forward. I don't know. It's messy and complicated for sure.
And I would say, for whatever it's worth, that I do feel like our culture of schools have changed so much. Like, I think when I was first working in the schools, I got paid for documentation time because I work for an agency and I'm hourly. So really, all my learning is on me. Most of my documentation, because we are both held to a level of rigor, because we have advocates, we can get sued, so there's always that like best practice, we're always asked to document to best practice, yet we're not given the time to do that ever. And so, it's just kind of like this ongoing balancing act of, be the best you can be more than is humanly possible within the time you're given. And like you look at, okay, this is just a personal story that my husband and I used to joke around a lot about, and it was sort of obnoxious, but like we had this friend who did marketing in car sales and, worked for a big corporation. Their funding was unreal. Their like downtime, their enrichment, their everything was so cushy. Their house was paid for. They had a new car every 3 months. I mean, could you imagine if being a teacher and working in education, you even got lunch on a regular basis kind of thing that was like something you wanted to eat? Like, we're just so, like you go to our conferences, it's like, here's some hot water. You know what I mean? Like, we're just really Like, there's not a lot of cush. And so they just kind of count on that we're all going to support each other out of this vision we have for the greater good. That, like, you really have to believe in it beyond our greater cultural value. And then what is valued are test scores. And so I think that in itself, like, you know, like looking at the CLA of like, what are we dealing with? Well, we're dealing with impossible situations and measures that don't even measure what most of us who are in this field care about. But that's what's considered success. And so having those test scores gets your funding, gets those programs. Do you know what I mean? So I think like being able to name how little there is that like really without, I mean, I think that's part of what's so beautiful about this is we're all a eventual resource for each other, for believing in something that's just kind of not really supported culturally in our values of schools and education. You know, I'm definitely not motivated by test scores.
I just listened to a podcast on 10% Happier, and the guy wrote a book, and it was about something like stop thinking about what people think about you or something. But one part was about performance based measurement versus purpose. So our image of ourselves, is it performance, is our image performance measured image versus purpose measured image. I really like that idea that, you know, when we're looking at subscribes and follows and all those things, for me, I guess being self-employed, that's an important part of business. And I just closed all my social media accounts. I closed all of them except YouTube, because I've really been embracing this whole concept of befriending my nervous system. It's been huge for me. And I looked at what every time I got on Facebook or, you know, LinkedIn, and I would compare myself to other people, and I felt like, gosh, if I, as an adult who's pretty well, you know, up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if I can't stay regulated and in ventral, what about our kids on social media and the stress they feel around how many people liked an image, how many, I mean, we have a community that just does not engage. And Leah, thank you. I know on YouTube, you've been posting some little comments, and I was like, oh, we got a comment. Like nobody, I do all these videos and spend, you know, days editing them, and I get like 2 likes, and we just don't, for some reason, you know, I think we're busy. Everybody's busy. They're running from here to there, and they click, they watch, they go great, and they leave. But I had to really look at how I'm feeling every time. And then people would message me, and I hadn't checked it in a month, and they're mad at me because I didn't answer their messaging. And it was nerve wracking to actually, for Facebook, you have to really search and dig to figure out how to get rid of your stuff. They hide it very deeply. I had to do a search on how to deactivate my account. So yeah, it's gone. It is now gone. And I feel like if people want to find me, and if it's business suicide, it's business suicide, because at this point in my life, I'm going to be 66 September next Tuesday. I turned
Happy birthday.
66, and Leah, your birthday's coming up too on the 12th. And in 8 months after that, I can start drawing some Social Security. And so I'm like, you know, and I did pay a lot into it because I taught for a certain amount, but I had a lot of porters in privately too. So I'm okay that way. But I just feel like at this point in my life, and just like you were saying, I can't see you ever retiring ever. But, you know, I'm trying to look at, and I think this is what we have to do, even if it means what we're doing isn't working for us. I mean, if, you know, I've had talks with each of you individually at certain times in your life and your career about, and you've shared with me about, I'm just not feeling fulfilled, or this just isn't, I feel like more in sympathetic, or I'm going into dorsal or whatever. So I like that whole 1 foot in ventral. trying to keep one foot in ventral. And as we talk about all the challenges we have, that's the one quote I really love that I got from writing the book from Deb Dana was always keep one foot in ventral. And our meetings are a ventral resource. And
Mhm.
I'm sure we have people at school that like, Chris, when that teacher came up to you and said, oh, I just love, you put all this work into this website, and she comes up and says, thank you so much for that. That little thank you made all the work, even though everybody else, 90% didn't thank you. That one person who did makes it all worth your while. And on social media, you just don't get, there aren't thanks. It's mostly
Yeah.
just you post, you spend a lot of time, you go down the rabbit hole. And there's just nothing that fed my soul there. There was no time when I logged on to my social media account where I left going, oh, just never, it never happened. It always was, oh, and so I did the, I think, pretty brave thing, really. And I feel like if my business folds tomorrow and nobody comes and asks me for any more training because I don't have a Facebook account, so be it.
I find in general from school moves, well as the courses I teach, very rarely ever, even when TheraMoves advertises on there, it's people heard, other people took it. Oh, I like taking your course. Or I know Dr. Wilson. Like it's word of mouth. It's us working with the people, and it's not, I don't think the people that we're attracting in our courses, Deb, in our material is aren't, I just don't think that that's the case. That's like a trendy. It's like, okay, yeah, I used to have Instagram and it was cute. I'm like, oh, that's a cute treatment technique. And I got ideas here and there, but it didn't make me then go follow, do things. And it's funny
No, I
what,
used to pay somebody, it was like
Mm.
500 a month. This was
yeah,
to do
yeah,
social media for me, and I was tracking conversion. It never converted to anything. It didn't convert to sales. And I really love the word of mouth idea. I really love that generally 90% of traffic to the School Moves website is word of mouth.
yeah,
They Googled School Moves, and it's so funny the way they spell it. It'll be
yeah,
Kaool, it'll be
yeah,
S, because because of the apostrophe.
right, yeah,
Nobody can find it, but they eventually find it, and it's not, they didn't Google struggling learner, or they didn't Google overwhelmed teacher. Like
yeah.
they Googled the name. So they
Yeah.
saw some materials somewhere. Somebody has.
Also, they have associations. Like I had two girls today, and I'm like, all right, let's start with docs and squeezes. My lower functioning students. So here's a folder. This is going to be the Miss Jess folder. What do you want to call it? So one girl's like, it's the school moves folder. I said, what if we don't do school moves? No, Miss Jess folder is the school moves folder. And I was like, funny, but like, good. Okay, let them have those connections and associations. But when you were saying with the social media, I could really, first of all, they took away most high schools, at least in my neighborhood. The girls have to give it in the morning and they can get it back for lunch. Or in one of my elementary schools, the middle school boys and girls have to give it in and they can't have it till the end of the day, even during lunch, because they found it was making kids anxious. There was all these drama happening or things that happened in the world. The world's like a scary place a little bit now. And besides that, there's just drama and at home. And then kids were literally texting each other and not having conversations. And I'm talking about the mainstream kids in my building. So they got rid of it and they advertised it. I saw that every day the school sends an email, picture of the day. And I saw the one today was like, we're so proud of our middle schoolers. This is what the research is. They're engaging. But I do see kids are talking to each other more. Kids are like lighter in the hallway. We also talk about when you're on a screen for so long, it slows down. It makes those theta waves in the front of your brain. And I think that already they use Chromebooks a lot of these schools. And I feel like it's just another piece of it. But so that was one thing I noticed. And the second thing I noticed is that me personally, I was never a big poster, but I would go on Instagram or Facebook at the end of the day. And first I got rid of Facebook and then Instagram. And I just found I wasn't able to control what I was looking at. Do you know what I mean? So even if you follow a fashion person, they become political, and you're like, wait, I'm here to just talk about look at what's a style. You know what I mean? I'm looking to see a recipe. I don't want to know about, or people would get on and tell you these heartbreaking stories or post things that happened. And honestly, I was like, I went off of it cold turkey, and I don't miss it. And that way, if there's something going on in the world, I have to put the words into Google, and I feel like it's so much more powerful that way. I find like you said, I think it makes a lot of us anxious. And I think I've been much calmer. And my friends are like, you don't know this, you don't know that. I'm like, it's important. I'll know about it. And I'll
Yeah,
look at
that's
the news
true.
websites and
Yeah,
I'll make sure to educate. It's not a matter of putting our head in the sand. We have to be educated about, what's going on in the world and technologies, and God forbid if there's school shootings, like we have to know about that. But it doesn't have to be in our face. We can know about it when we're ready and not in the middle of a student and getting these alerts on our phone about, and I really feel like I didn't even realize how much some of those things were putting me in like dorsal vagal. Like I was functioning, I was walking around, but I feel like there was a certain degree of shutdown, and then you're not present for our students and our children. So I think there's a lot of good for businesses and stuff with social media, but again, I don't think that's our brand. I don't think I don't even think that's appropriate for us to promote there, because that's so the opposite of everything we talk about with resilient learner, with power ups, with school moves. So that's just my personal opinion on it.
So I just shared with you guys an article. I heard this on NPR and then I looked it up because my husband and I were both like, what? So it's at a University of Washington. And just if you're interested, copy the link. It was a study that basically suggests that due to lockdown, there's been change in the gray matter of adolescents' brains as measured before COVID lockdown and after. And in one part of the study, the author kind of attributes it to isolation and missing out on the normal social life. In girls, it was like 4 times more than boys. That there's been a maturation in the gray matter, which is thinning of the gray matter. Which is really interesting. Like all of it's just a very interesting study. But sometimes when you look at these social science studies that are looked to name the portion, like what are the antecedents that have really changed the mental health of our young adults and teen population, and that the parameters of it being like hands down, being isolated, that was all really part of it. But what about the stress? What about being isolated with a screen and all that was coming into it, and social media? Like, I think for the kids who were in the family room doing puzzles with their families, maybe it wasn't the most traumatic thing that ever happened. It's just such interesting parameters that I feel like when you do look at those science, these studies that are happening in social science, I'm always kind of astounded that there's not more pointing towards social media and
well,
what we
there's a
know.
new book out that's huge, the Anxious Generation, right? Isn't that the new book?
Yeah.
This guy's speaking everywhere, and he's one of the reasons why the schools are taking phones away. He's had a really positive impact. However, I think when we talk about resilience and creating befriending school cultures, I think an important part of it is for students, if they still do have their phones and they are on social media, to get them to check in. Because when you start checking in and you start realizing, once I got on this, I got more anxious, or once I got on this, I got more sad. I think that's the way we're going to get them off of it, is they are going to have to be able to check in with their system and realize this isn't healthy. This isn't a healthy thing for me to do. And that's the point I came to with mine, was this is not a healthy thing for me anymore. And so I'm doing YouTube because I like making videos. I just did one on color. I just painted my table in my kitchen while talking to everyone about the power of color as a regulating resource. And I'm going to release that pretty soon. I was editing it today. But I like doing videos. To me, they're creative, they're artistic, and that's fun for me. So when I checked in to say with school moves moving forward, and as I'm getting up there, it's like, what do I want to do? And the time is now to do those things. that I enjoy. But I am getting more and more trainings, unfortunately, about behavior. And I'm always like the reading specialist about how to improve academics. But I'm doing a huge one October 16th, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wrote to them and said, so exactly tell me what's going on. And it's all behavior, behavior, behavior. And so, whether or not what we've learned, so we've only have like 10 minutes or 12 minutes. So let me just say, and I know people want to get off in time for the debate and everything, but I wanted to let you know that I will miss us too. And the weekly, it's just been hard, but I would like, this is I think one of the best turnouts, but what I'd like to do is do monthly meetings still, so that we can still just check in. And if something's really going on, I'll just send an email out to everybody and say, hey, can we log on this week? And I wanted to invite other people too, so my idea, and I wrote that in the newsletter, and tell me if this sounds okay, so that we're not just like stopping. Like, we're going to keep this going through the year so we can figure out how implementation's going with some of these ideas. Is that I thought each month, there's 7 months basically in the year. By the time I don't send newsletters out during holidays, and I quit in the summer, and I start about mid-September, because at the beginning of the year, nobody's reading a newsletter. They're just too frantic. So I wanted to each newsletter do a step, so that we go back again. And what I was planning to do was actually read the chapter. I thought that would be interesting for me to actually read the chapter again and animate it. So it would be me. I don't know how long it'll take me to read 5 pages. I have no idea, but I thought if I could read the chapter and have that audio, people could listen to it on the way home from work. You could listen to it as like a refresher, and you'd hear my voice in your ear, whether you wanted it or not. You'd get my voice in your ear. But I thought I could read it, and then if people are on video, I can pop in the images that are in the book, and then do sort of, there's 4 weeks, right? I send out a newsletter every Friday. So each Friday I could say, hey, this week, let's focus on this. And then when we meet monthly, we could report back about like, how did like in the befriending step 1, observing nervous system states, how did that go? Did you use that tool? And does that feel like that could be something that could carry us through the year? And so you still feel supported, and we still get to engage with one another. So it'll be the newsletters. So if you're not on it, sign up for the newsletter every Friday. Those go out 10:15 Pacific time. That's the time I send them out every Friday. And then we can figure out monthly. I was thinking like the first, like if we say the first Thursday, then everybody got something on Thursday can't come. If I say every Wednesday, so I was thinking maybe the date, and then it alternates days. So does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
the 5th of every month or something like that. Then some days it'll be a Saturday, sometimes it'll be a Sunday, sometimes it'll be a Wednesday. And I know depending on where people are, they could join or not join, but does that make more sense than doing a day?
Yeah. Also, I think the videos are going to be great, because then we can shorten them and use clips if we want to like show a teacher. Or, sometimes when you start explaining or you ask them to read something, it's too much. But if I could send my director or a teacher, like I can cut it from one of those things and say, then that would almost getting them come back for more, right? Like it's a little
Yeah.
introduction. People ask me for videos all the time.
Well, I think if we can start using YouTube more as a training place for us to meet, I'm irritated that they're doing ads, and I don't monetize my channel, but the ads are on them anyway. They throw the ads on, and I have an ad blocker that blocks most of them. So you can get an ad blocker. But if we could send people, and I'll try to make very meaningful YouTube instructional, kind of like, okay, this week this is what we're working on, this is what we're going to try. I think that could work pretty well for us. I know some schools block YouTube. It depends on where you are, whether you can get onto YouTube or not. But I think that's, for me, the best media or the best way. And then I know everybody who goes sees it. Whereas if you post on social media, they decide who's getting to see, and it's a pay for play. If you're not paying, they're not sending anything out. That's how all of it is. And same thing on Amazon. Like my books don't get out to anybody because I'm not paying to advertise them. So people just have to hear about them, and I'm okay with it. I don't count on my books to retire. It's like, you know, my books are, they're a tool to me. They're a tool that I'm able to use. I did want to mention those of you about the backpack, about this though, real quick too, having the color version, those of you who got it for the young ones. And I actually have a newer book. So if you got the two separate ones, it's the same thing as this one. This is just combined, and I put it up on Amazon because I can buy them reasonably from Amazon more than I can from my printer. But I started doing, like, what I wanted to mention too is for young ones. So if you're talking about being in ventral and there's an activity, they could do the rabbit activity. And then I have a section in here in the new book where if it's a raccoon, they're feeling sympathetic, it's a raccoon activity they might choose to do, like have the movements related to the sympathetic state. And then if they're in turtle, you know, they might choose a turtle activity that's a little more quieter, like the turtle activities are more at the desk, whereas the sympathetic sometimes are more jumping and a little bit bigger. Not all of them are, but my idea was they could kind of do an act. Well, do you have a turtle activity you want to do? And you could start building their autonomic nervous system owner's manual we talked about at the last meeting. You could start putting those activities that they liked doing that were related to the rabbit, the raccoon for the young ones.
Ooh, Deb, I just looked it up. Is it the Resilient Learners Backpack Workbook?
Yeah.
And then what's the Ventral Learning Coach Manual?
That I put together, the Connect 12 and the Academic Coaching Manual, I put them together into one. The reason being is that I can order them from Amazon and I can ship directly to schools because the printing and shipping with my printer and SAC has just gotten too expensive, and I don't want to keep raising my costs for trainings because schools are being less funded than ever, and yet my costs were going up. So Amazon, I know people have a love-hate, but it's a good partner for me. And also, it, like we talked about, Leah, your friends in Australia, they can go on and buy it now. They, you know, like if they can't buy color, for some reason color isn't available in Australia through Amazon. I don't know why color products aren't, but if they're in black and white, but I have people from UK buying them now, so they can just go online and buy these things. You'll see there's no reviews or anything because I haven't really advertised it or put them out there at all. I just this summer took all my color products, like I have a 50 activities on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Basically, I put transition tune-ups, the Focus Move Advanced posters, the Brain Boost activities, the Twister puzzles, the Minute Moves, all in one book. Which, like, if people bought all those things separately, it'd be about $200 worth of these. The cards were $55, the Minute Moves were $55. So I just thought, you know what, let's just stick them all into one book and have it just be all together. So that's
Awesome.
what I worked on this summer.
That is really awesome.
Yeah, so there's like 4 or 5 books there now on Amazon.
Oh.
Me.
Deb, what is your intent with the course?
What do you mean by that?
So I talked with a couple of folks at a school that I used to work at, and one of them was interested in the course, and I said, I don't really know, you know, how to get on that, or if it's possible, or what you're thinking about that.
So I'm doing the course just like I do the School Moves, where everybody that I do training for gets a link into the classroom that has more videos and more things. And the Resilient Learner will be the same way. So I am really sort of torn, like, are they 2 different courses? You know, Jess and I will talk about it too. What I've discovered from us meeting, it feels like if you haven't had School Moves, you're a little behind in the Resilient Learner Backpack. Like, you don't know what all those resources are, because I just have a few resources compared to School Moves and all the resources there. And also, if you don't have that foundation built, you know, the core, the vision, all that, and you just try to throw resiliency on top of it, it's not as effective as if you've got that foundation really strong. So my thought is that School Moves is going to be kind of level 1 and Resilient Learner is going to be level 2. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Because I feel like they need to sort of know the background of level of School Moves and understand it to get the most out of, because I know we've had some people in the course who who hasn't done school moves, and then they ask questions, and I'm thinking, oh, if they had had school moves, that question would have been more clear for them.
Right.
So, but I can, anybody, I'm gonna have it so anybody can take it at any time if they want. They just need to get the book. And, you know, the book's $24.99, and then they can, I'll have it at the website where they can sign up for the course, so they can do it on their own. But then if we do a small group, and Jess and I are working on the New York City course through TheraMoves, where OTs and PTs can, and speech and can get their continuing ed. So Jess is gonna be teaching that after we get, you know, we pull together what that looks like. She's gonna be teaching that for TheraMoves. And so that will probably be an online class, and they'll get the book, and they're gonna get this little book, and, you know, they'll get a series of things as part of their materials.
I find that like people who you could take, I don't necessarily force people to take tabs meaning before they take power-ups, because we do a little bit of a review and present it in a different way. But I agree with you. They have to have at least taken school moves or power-ups to really get the benefit of this, because you have to go through the battery and understand all those keys that are such like game changers. It's like coming in the middle. So,
Yeah,
or
that's
some
what I
type
feel
of,
like too. I feel like this is like the deeper layer of it.
yeah.
Marie,
Also, people like the material. They're always asking for like, what's the newest thing in school moves? So I feel like this
Yeah.
would be a nice. My goal is to go back and get all those people. We've trained thousands of people between online and in person in the past 9 years between me and you. And I think that if we go back and get all those people and now train them in this, like imagine how much more powerful it would be. And we get requests all the time. I took the courses. What's the next one? What's the next thing from school moves? So I really think that that's our first. I feel like that's who we can attract the most. You know, you say go with the the eager 20%. Like people who have taken our courses and benefited from, whether it was a 2-hour training or an all day, they're the ones we should start with, and then hopefully, like everything else, like you said, word of mouth. Then it gets the whole system going. But I think we have to start with the people who know the system works, who've been using it. I mean, I feel like that's what everybody here kind of is, right? You've had some experience, and then
yeah,
you want the next level of it. Yeah.
right. Like, well, Kathy, you came in not having done school moves, right? What is
Right,
your perspective on it?
I think I had enough background in the whole brain thing that it all made sense to me. And so the specific activities, I could say, oh yeah, I see how that would work. So yes, but I came in the middle, but no, I had something else I also had previous.
You're good. How about you, Marie?
Yeah, it's funny. Oh shoot, am I muted? No, can you hear
You're
me?
good.
Okay. I was thinking, I felt the same as Kathy. Like I had a little bit of background, but I thought, okay, now I want to go back and take those school moves classes that you offered to me that I went partway through. I feel like there's so much more I could benefit from knowing. So that was my plan already.
And I'm getting, so many people are writing me about their volatile students. And I feel like, I mean, this is the soapbox I stand on, is that with volatile students, you have to go back to early developmental patterns. You have to make sure that, yes, they could, if we put PBIS and zones and all that, but we don't look at, do they have stability? Do they have core stability? Do they have vision tracking? Can they cross the midline? Can they hold a pencil? All these things create so much frustration in a student trying to focus. And what I find is that once we get rhythm and timing and midline and this mind body in sync, the behavior is almost half, almost right out the gate. I don't care how volatile the student, I've seen it over and over and over again, and yet we don't talk about it. And so I actually I took one of Robert's canvases, I stole it, he's an artist, I stole it, his big canvas, and I made it all into a magnet board, and I put magnets on my posters so that I can do a video that's big where I've got them behind me. And I'm going to talk about the volatile student, and I'm going to explain this in a video, because I feel like how do I want to explain it? I mean, it's like just frosting the cake before you bake the cake. You like the PBIS and the resilient backpack and all of those things we have to make sure that they have the neural foundation. I've just seen it for years and years and years.
You know,
And that goes back to, like I've done a lot of Bruce Perry's stuff, and he says the same thing,
Yep.
that neurosequential, and he
Rhythmic,
has
patterned
data that proves it.
Yes, I know. I've quoted him since the beginning of School Moves almost. You know, I've been following his work for years and years. I actually did a workshop. I told you I did a workshop with him years ago. Before he was as popular as he is now. And we did it together. The morning was him and the afternoon was me. And I had no idea how in sync we were until I started really hearing all his theory. But he's a brain-based person, right? It's like if you put the two of us together, he's got the brain part, I've got the body part, and now the nervous system. And if you look at his model, he's got all this brain stuff. It's in the Oprah book that he just did. What happened to you?
What happened to you?
Yeah. But then the nervous system is this little tiny little like connecting here. And I'm thinking, it's like everybody's got their piece. And if we can put all those pieces together, I think then we have a really robust solution, I think, for what we're seeing in schools. And do some kids come to school just to make us crazy? Yeah. Marie, you know some of those, right? But still, I find underneath it, generally, when we start doing the rhythmic pattern, it just regulates them using the body rather than words and colors and all these kinds of things, just using their body to regulate them. I don't know, it just seems like the fastest, most efficient way that I've seen over the years. So I know we're 5 after 5. Any other last minute thoughts?
I love that idea of a video. I'm so excited.
Me too.
For you to do that.
I've never done it. Like I look at YouTube and I think I'm really missing an opportunity to say, I'm shy about saying what I know. Like I sort of shine the light on other people, Bruce Perry, and I interview people. I tend to do that a lot instead of stepping in front of, I don't ever step in front of the camera. And there's not one video on YouTube where it's just me talking about how I see the world. There's none. There's animated and I'm narrating or I'm interviewing somebody, but I'm always on with somebody else. I
have one that I show in tabs actually, but
the star of the show. Which one do you show where I'm actually in front of the camera talking?
Yeah, you're explaining RTI. There's only one picture. It's mostly you. And people like it. They go, "Oh, there's a face to it. That's Dr. Wilson."
I love your video. I love your videos and the animation. I'm in awe always.
Well, I like to do a little bit of both, but I guess one of my objectives for this coming school year is to be a little braver, be a little riskier of stepping out in front of the camera and talking and sharing a little more. What's the word I want to say? Like I know this stuff.
Yeah, you're that expert. Actually, I think at least in the world of OT, you have earned status of a guru. You can claim that because
I had a dream last night that I went back to school and I became an occupational therapist.
you would be. You already are.
And I woke up and I Googled U of A and I looked up to see what does it take to be an occupational therapist? Anyway, I'm 66, but I could be one by 70.
You're more qualified than 95% of the therapists out there.
Oh my gosh. I give you honorary occupational therapy license.
I think someday somebody needs to do that. One of those colleges should give me an honorary degree.
I would. Oh my gosh. You're one of the best OTs I know.
Oh my God.
I'm not even kidding.
But I still feel like if I did an OT, actually did a degree, I'd probably know so much more too. But
you wouldn't.
But it's fun.
You actually would not. I'm gonna just lay that out. There is absolutely nothing you're missing.
Oh, that's great.
You have gone above and beyond. You could get your OT doctorate now. Like,
I
you're-
tried to when I was looking at my doctorate, but nobody would accept me. I wrote to a few places and said, I've developed this one. I had to have an undergraduate because I thought that'd be really fun to have an OTD.
yeah. Well,
But
I give
all
you
right.
one.
all right, so thank you for showing up this
Thank
evening.
you, Jen.
And I appreciate just your feedback. And so I'm looking forward to, we'll stay in touch. And I'm looking forward to, if I put myself out there, you better hop on YouTube and give me a like though, because I'm gonna go, oh, I put myself out there in front of the camera and nobody gave me any likes.
You got it.
Let us know it's there.
And anyone who is taking school moves or you're going to refresh, you could reach out to me also. I'm Jessica T. Gilson at Gmail. I could put it in the chat box. And if you want to pick my brain about that also, because Deb's busy with this, I've done a lot with the schools and I work a lot with teachers. So if I could be a resource also in that way, I'm sure you guys will be
Yeah, Jess
resources.
is the PT, who wants to be the
Jess.
reading specialist.
I know. I was gonna say, Jess, you also have that reading because there are two areas I feel like OTs are really getting pulled into: support with reading and support with executive function skills.
Yeah. Deb, I
And
have
I'm
a very
like,
big announcement for you. 3 teachers invited me to co-teach their reading class with them once a week. Deb and I have been working on this for 5 years. 3 teachers, and then 2 are letting me pull their kids, which is also very big. But 3 of them
that's
asked me to come and
awesome.
join them.
And also, I ordered the executive functioning book that somebody recommended, but Donna, but she's not on. She had COVID last week. She's probably still not feeling too well. But Donna had recommended it to me. And so I will do a video. I thought that I really like doing like, how does polyvagal integrate with executive functioning? And how does, I like those kind. So I've got lots of videos in my mind that I'm going to be producing. And that I read that book, so full of self-regulation. Like the whole book was
what's the name of it again?
self-regulation. It was an executive functioning book that was recommended and I purchased it. And they used, I wish Donna was on because I would talk to her about it, but they're notebooks and these notebooks organize the kids. But it seemed like it was a very, I don't know, kind of a high level executive functioning a little bit to me, but I could see where some of it could work, and I might interview him. I might get him on to, I might do an interview with him. It's a new book. It's just called Executive Functioning in the Classroom or something like that, I think. It's green and white. Inside there's like some green print to it, but there's is that concept of co-regulation. There's some concepts that I think when added with polyvagal would just make it even more effective. Like he talks about them checking in with themselves to see if they're ready to learn. Well, that's a great opportunity to integrate, polyvagal into that.
Right. The video you did.
Cheryl, I want to say how you just popped on.
The video you did also that I showed in Montana about comparing like this kind of stuff to the zones of regulation, people really liked, because that's the one that a lot of schools are using. So I think if you show those videos that take things that were hot topics like executive functioning, that they're all buzzwords, and you show how this fits into that, I find I got a lot of good feedback from people. Asked for the link of that on YouTube after I showed that when we were just in Montana during the TABS course.
Okay.
So I think like you're almost like anticipating what people's questions are gonna be, but what about? And then like, oh, here's a video. And then it's like, oh, and I find the questions afterwards are kind of like much more focused or not as, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Not as confused or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, Jess. That's really, I mean, I am doing so much, and I'm actually working on a staff training on executive function because so many of the OTs are like, and how do we put this under our umbrella? And Deb, I'll send you a photo that one of my coworkers shared with me, and it's like sensory kind of and cognitive development and how they kind of
yeah, and anything you send to me, I post in our classroom. So I'll post it with the video. So anything we talked about today, like the executive functioning book, that I post right under the video as resources. So anything mentioned, that's what I end up doing. And also if you send me a website, like I think you'll need to send that to me, Leah, the website about something, that article, just send it to me directly.
oh yeah,
I won't get
that's
it.
more like
Yeah. But I just
I'm
wanted
not-
to have it for who's ever logged on, if they're
Oh,
watching.
okay, got you.
recording.
Yeah, that's in the chat, but I'll
Thank
send
you
it.
guys so much. I have to jump off, but thank you
Yep.
all. It's been
Yeah,
so
bye,
beneficial.
Jess.
Bye.
Hi,
Okay,
Jess.
bye. Thanks for joining me in the
My
course.
pleasure.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Okay, I'll send those to you now so I don't forget.
Okay.